The room that decided everything. She stood outside the glass doors for exactly 3 seconds. Long enough to inhale. Not long enough to doubt herself. Inside, the boardroom buzzed with low, confident laughter, the kind that came from men who had never been told no and women who had learned to smile through it. The name etched in brushed steel beside the door read, Corvin Global, Executive Floor. Everyone inside belonged there. At least that's what they thought. She adjusted the strap of her worn leather portfolio, smoothed the sleeve of her modest navy blazer, and stepped in. The laughter stopped. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just enough. Enough for eyes to lift. Enough for glances to linger half a second too long. Enough for the unspoken question to ripple across the polished table. Who is she? Maya Alcott felt it immediately. Not hostility. Worse. Dismissal. The hook, minutes 0 to 7 humiliation in silk and glass. The room was wrong for her in the way expensive places often were. Too white. Too quiet. Too sure of itself. 12 executives sat around a table that cost more than her childhood home. Every chair was occupied, except one. At the far end. Closest to the screen. Closest to him. Dominic Hale. Founder. CEO. Industry legend. A man whose name made investors lean forward and competitors sweat. He didn't look up when she entered. He was reviewing something on a tablet, jaw set, silver cufflinks catching the light. The kind of man who didn't need to announce authority. Rooms rearranged themselves for him. Ms. Alcott? A woman near the center asked, voice polite but distant. Yes. Maya met her gaze calmly. Thank you for having me. A flicker of surprise crossed the woman's face, gone in an instant. Maya walked to the empty chair. As she sat, Dominic finally looked up. His eyes scanned her, not crudely but clinically, like a cost-benefit analysis. Then his gaze flicked to her portfolio. Leather. Scuffed at the corners. Is that all? He asked. The room went still. Maya blinked once. Yes. Dominic leaned back slightly. Interesting. One man chuckled under his breath. Another checked his watch. Dominic folded his hands. Before we begin, let's clarify something. This role requires presence, representation. Clients at this level expect a certain polish. His eyes dropped, just briefly, to her shoes. Sensibly worn. Immaculate. Not designer. And confidence, he added. The kind that usually comes with experience. Maya felt the heat rise in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. I have experience. Dominic smiled. It wasn't warm. I'm sure you do, he said. On paper. That was the moment. The moment she realized this interview was not about her resume. It was about whether she belonged. Flashback, the girl they never expected. Maya had learned this lesson early. Growing up, she'd watched doors close politely. Scholarships she almost qualified for. Internships that went to someone with the right last name. Meetings where her ideas were praised, then repeated by someone else and suddenly applauded. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She didn't intimidate. So people assumed she didn't matter. They were always wrong. The question that crossed the line. Dominic tapped his tablet. Let's do this efficiently, he said. Tell us, why should Corvin Global take a risk on you? Maya straightened. She answered calmly. Precisely. She spoke of market restructuring, ethical supply chains, data-driven growth models. A few executives began to listen. Dominic did not. When she finished, he tilted his head. Impressive vocabulary, he said. But let me ask something more practical. He leaned forward. Who trained you? The tone shifted. Not curious. Testing. Maya hesitated, just a fraction of a second. I trained myself, she said. With mentors. Dominic cut her off. No. He waved a hand. I mean, where did you come from? The room froze. The woman beside Maya stiffened. Someone coughed. Dominic continued, oblivious, or unconcerned. Because talent usually has a pedigree. A network. Backing. I don't see that here. He gestured vaguely toward her. So help me understand, how did you end up in this room? Silence pressed down like weight. This was the moment people folded. This was where apologies happened. Where voices softened. Where ambition shrank to fit expectations. Maya did not fold. She met Dominic's gaze. I earned my way here, she said. He smiled again. Still cold. That's not an answer, he replied. The turn, minute 7 as he doesn't break. Maya inhaled slowly. Actually, she said, it is. She placed her portfolio on the table and opened it, not to her resume, but to a single document. She slid it across the table toward him. Dominic glanced at it, annoyed. Then he froze. The color drained just slightly from his face. Around the table, others leaned forward. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. Maya kept her voice even. "You should recognize it," she said. "It's the internal risk audit Corvin Global buried 3 years ago. The one that predicted the compliance collapse in your Southeast operations." A murmur rippled through the room. "That document was sealed," someone whispered. Dominic looked up slowly. "Who are you?" he asked. Maya met his eyes. "I'm the analyst your competitors hired when you ignored the warning signs," she said. "The one who helped them avoid the losses you absorbed." The room erupted. Questions. Recognition. Dominic said nothing. For the first time since she entered, he didn't control the room. Maya closed her portfolio. "You asked how I got here," she said calmly. "I came because you need me more than you realize." Silence. Then Dominic stood. He studied her, not dismissively now. Carefully. Dangerously. "Sit," he said. Not an order. A request. And for the first time that day Maya knew. This was no longer an interview. This was a reckoning. The test designed to break her. The aftershock. Silence after truth is never quiet. It hums. It vibrates beneath skin, behind eyes, in the spaces between breaths. The boardroom at Corvin Global no longer belonged to Dominic Hale. Not fully. Not anymore. Maya Alcott sat still at the far end of the table, hands folded, posture composed, but inside her chest, her heart hammered with disciplined restraint. She had crossed a line most people never dared to approach. She had exposed power. And power never forgave easily. Dominic remained standing, his palms resting flat against the polished table. Around him, executives avoided eye contact, suddenly fascinated by notepads, screens, reflections. The woman who had first welcomed Maya finally spoke. "You, who worked on the Sarin Group recovery?" Maya nodded. "Consulted." Quietly. Another executive leaned forward. "That operation saved them close to 400 million. Maya didn't correct him. It had been more. Dominic's jaw tightened. "So," he said slowly, "you didn't come here looking for a job." "I came here because you're about to make the same mistake Sarin avoided," Maya replied. "And because you asked the wrong question." That landed harder than any accusation. Dominic straightened, smoothing his jacket. "And what question should I have asked?" Maya held his gaze. "What happens if you ignore the people you underestimate?" The room felt suddenly smaller. Dominic exhaled through his nose, controlled, deliberate. "Well," he said, "then it seems we should continue this discussion." He gestured toward the empty chair beside him. "Closer." A calculated move. Bring her into his space. Reassert dominance. Maya stood. As she walked, she felt eyes on her back, some impressed, some threatened, some waiting for her to stumble. She didn't. She sat. The private challenge. The meeting ended abruptly. No congratulations. No apologies. Just a directive. "Ms. Alcott," Dominic said, "my office." "Now." Executives filed out, murmuring. The woman from earlier lingered, meeting Maya's eyes briefly. Careful, her expression said. Dominic's office was all glass and steel, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sunlight reflecting off buildings like knives. He closed the door. The silence inside was sharper than before. "You embarrassed me," he said flatly. Maya didn't flinch. "I answered your question. You undermined my authority. I corrected your assumptions." Dominic turned to face her. "You don't get to walk into my company and rewrite the rules." Maya met his stare. "I didn't rewrite them. I followed them. You asked for value. I showed you risk." He laughed once, short, humorless. "You think that makes you untouchable?" "No," she said honestly. "I think it makes me useful." That was when Dominic smiled. And Maya knew she'd made an enemy. Or something worse. "Fine," he said. "Let's test that usefulness." He walked to his desk and tapped his tablet. "Tomorrow morning we're presenting to our top investors. There's a regulatory exposure no one here has been able to mitigate." He turned the screen toward her. "You claim to see what others miss." He leaned closer. "Fix it. By morning." Maya scanned the data. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't a test. It was a trap. The issue wasn't solvable overnight, not cleanly, not without insider cooperation. Dominic knew that. "If I fail?" she asked. Dominic's eyes hardened. "You walk out. Quietly. And we forget this conversation ever happened." "And if I succeed?" He paused. Then Then you consult directly under me. Power. Proximity. Control. Maya nodded once. I'll need full access. Dominic's eyebrow lifted. Trust already? No, she replied. Necessity. He considered. Granted, he said. But don't mistake this for goodwill. She stood. I never do. The longest night. Maya didn't go home. She worked in a small glass-walled conference room overlooking the city, lights burning while floors below went dark. Data. Compliance logs. Buried reports. The deeper she went, the clearer it became. This wasn't negligence. It was intentional blindness. At 2:17 a.m., her hands stopped shaking, not from exhaustion but from anger. She found it. A pattern of deferred reporting, legal technically but ethically volatile. Designed to inflate quarterly confidence while pushing risk forward like a time bomb. She built a solution. Not cosmetic. Structural. It would cost Corvin Global millions in the short term. But save them from collapse. At 5:43 a.m. she emailed Dominic. Solution attached. Full transparency required. No response. At 7:30 she stood before the investor panel. Dominic watched from the side. Silent. Assessing. Maya spoke. Clearly. Calmly. Unflinchingly. She didn't soften the truth. She didn't flatter. She showed the cost of arrogance. By the end, the room wasn't questioning her credibility. They were questioning Corvin Global's leadership. Dominic's leadership. The silence afterward was brutal. Then one investor spoke. This is the first honest risk briefing we've had in years. Another nodded. Why wasn't this addressed sooner? Eyes turned. Not to Maya. To Dominic. Instant karma, but only the beginning. Afterward, Dominic closed his office door harder than before. You blindsided me, he said. You asked for a solution, Maya replied. I gave you one. You made me look reckless. No, she said softly. I showed them the truth. He stared at her. For the first time, something cracked. Not anger. Fear. You could have ruined us. I could have saved you, she corrected. If you let me. Silence stretched. Finally, Dominic exhaled. You stay, he said. For now. Maya nodded. But she didn't smile. Because she knew something Dominic didn't. She hadn't just fixed a problem. She'd exposed a pattern. And people who built empires on ego never changed easily. As she left the office, her phone vibrated. An unknown number. One text. Careful. He's done this before. Maya's pulse spiked. She looked back at Dominic's glass office. Him standing alone, framed by the skyline. Powerful. Cornered. And dangerous. The humiliation he planned for her. The warning she shouldn't have ignored. Maya read the message again. Careful. He's done this before. No name. No explanation. Just truth wrapped in threat. She slid her phone into her pocket and forced her breathing steady as she stepped back into the executive floor. The air felt different now, thicker, charged with whispers and half-formed conclusions. People were looking at her. Not with curiosity. With calculation. Dominic Hale had not forgiven her. He had recalibrated. The setup. By noon, Maya knew something was wrong. Emails went unanswered. Meetings she was scheduled for disappeared from the calendar. Access permissions she'd been granted quietly vanished. When she tried to open the compliance dashboard she'd used the night before, a red notification flashed. Access denied. She frowned. Minutes later, a company-wide email dropped. From Dominic. Subject, Emergency Review, Southeast Exposure. All senior staff are to convene in the main conference hall at 2 p.m. Attendance mandatory. Maya's stomach tightened. This wasn't damage control. This was theater. The room fills, and the trap closes. The conference hall was larger than the boardroom. Tiered seating, cameras, glass walls facing the press gallery above. Executives. Legal. Investors. Communications. And Maya. Alone at the center table. Dominic stood at the podium, immaculate as ever. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he began. As you know, Corvin Global values accountability. The word landed like a warning shot. Maya felt it then, the subtle shift. The way eyes avoided hers. The way people leaned away instead of in. Dominic continued. Yesterday, an external consultant presented a risk assessment regarding our Southeast operations. He glanced at her. Ms. Alcott. Maya nodded once. Unfortunately, Dominic said, subsequent review revealed discrepancies. A murmur rippled through the room. Maya's pulse spiked. Specifically, he went on, Certain figures were misrepresented. Context omitted. Projections overstated. That wasn't just false. It was dangerous. Maya stood. That's not accurate. My report was. Dominic raised a hand. Please, he said calmly. You'll have a chance to respond. He gestured to the screen behind him. Graphs appeared. Altered. Selective. Stripped of caveats. Data weaponized. Maya stared, realization crashing over her. He hadn't disproved her work. He'd edited it. Ms. Alcott, Dominic said, voice measured, would you like to explain why your analysis caused unnecessary panic among our investors? Every eye turned to her. This was it. The moment designed to break her. Public humiliation, by design. Maya's mouth went dry. She searched faces for support. Found none. This wasn't about truth. It was about dominance. She took a breath. The data you're showing, she said carefully, is incomplete. Dominic smiled, small, satisfied. Are you suggesting I manipulated your work? The room went silent. Say yes and you're insubordinate. Say no and you accept the blame. Maya realized the brilliance of the trap. Either way, she loses. I'm saying, she said slowly, that decisions were made without my knowledge. Dominic tilted his head. Interesting. Because our logs show you authorized the final upload. He tapped the screen. A timestamp. Her credentials. Force. Gasp. Someone whispered, that's serious. Dominic's voice softened, almost regretful. Ms. Alcott, I gave you an opportunity. You claimed competence. Integrity. He sighed. But it appears we were mistaken. Her ears rang. Her hands clenched. This wasn't just professional destruction. This was character assassination. The lowest point. Security approached. Not aggressively. Politely. Maya felt heat flood her face, not shame. Rage. I didn't do this, she said. You know I didn't. Dominic met her gaze. And for a split second she saw it. Not guilt. Enjoyment. You're dismissed, he said. The words echoed. Maya gathered her things as whispers followed her out. Overreached. Ambitious. Too much. As the doors closed behind her, the press gallery above buzzed. She was already being written out of the story. The text that changes everything. In the hallway, Maya leaned against the wall, chest tight. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Same number. Check the backup logs. He forgot one thing. Her breath hitched. She ran. Not out. Back in. The discovery. The secondary server room was rarely used. Legacy systems, archived redundancies. Exactly the kind of thing Dominic would overlook. Her fingers flew across the terminal. Minutes passed. Then, there it was. An automatic backup. Immutable. Time-stamped. Showing exactly when her report was altered. By whom? Dominic Hale. Personally. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, not with fear. With clarity. This wasn't arrogance anymore. This was abuse of power. And she wasn't the first. She pulled more logs. Patterns emerged. Consultants blamed. Analysts discarded. Whistleblowers erased. All women. All outsiders. All temporary. Maya sat back shaking. Then she smiled. Because Dominic Hale had made one fatal mistake. He'd underestimated how far she was willing to go. The decision. She could walk away. Save herself. Or she could finish what she started. Maya copied everything. Encrypted it. Sent one email. To every investor. Every board member. And one journalist Dominic trusted too much. Subject line. The discrepancies you were shown. She stood. Straightened her blazer. And waited. The day the empire cracked. The email that hit like thunder. Dominic Hale was mid-sentence when the first phone vibrated. Then another. Then another. Around the conference hall, heads tilted down, not out of disrespect but reflex. The kind that came when instincts scream something is wrong. Dominic paused. As I was saying, he continued smoothly, Corvin Global remains committed to transparency. A sharp cough interrupted him. An investor near the front row was staring at his phone, face pale. Another executive whispered urgently to the person beside her. Then the journalist in the press gallery stood. Dominic's pulse spiked, but he didn't show it. Is there a problem? He asked. The journalist didn't wait for permission. Mr. Hale, she said, voice echoing through the hall, we've just received documentation suggesting internal data manipulation tied directly to your credentials. The room exploded. What? That's absurd. Who sent this? Dominic's eyes flicked. Once to the side door. To where Maya should have been. But she wasn't there. She was standing above them. In the press gallery. Watching. The evidence speaks. Screens lit up across the hall. Emails. Logs. Time stamps. Not opinions. Facts. The journalist continued. The backups show Ms. Alcott's original report unchanged, and a later version altered from your personal device. Gasps rippled like a wave. Dominic felt something he hadn't felt in years. Loss of control. That's fabricated, he snapped. A hack. Then explain this, another investor said, projecting a file. A pattern. Repeated incidents. Different names. Same outcome. Brilliant analysts blamed. Removed. Silenced. Dominic opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because for the first time, arrogance had no shield. Maya steps forward. Maya descended the steps calmly. No rush. No triumph. Just resolve. She stopped beside the podium. May I? She asked quietly. Dominic didn't answer. She turned to the room. I didn't come here to destroy Corvin Global, she said. I came to prevent harm. She gestured to the screen. These weren't mistakes. They were choices. Ones that protected short-term image at the cost of long-term damage. Her voice didn't shake. But when I challenged that, I became inconvenient. Silence. Then applause. Not thunderous. Not celebratory. The fall. The board didn't adjourn. They acted. Immediately. Dominic was escorted out, not by security but by reputation collapsing in real time. As he passed Maya, he stopped. You think this makes you powerful? He said low. Maya met his gaze. No, she replied. It makes me free. He had no answer. The cost of truth. Hours later, Maya sat alone in a quiet room. The adrenaline had faded. What remained was weight. She'd won. But victory wasn't light. A board member entered. We want to offer you a position, he said. Senior oversight. Full authority. Maya shook her head. No, she said softly. Not here. He hesitated. Then what will you do? She smiled faintly. What I should have been allowed to do from the start. The kind of power he never understood. The morning after. The city didn't look different. That surprised Maya. Traffic still flowed. Coffee shops still opened. People still hurried past each other with purpose and distraction. But everything had changed. Dominic Hale's name was everywhere. Not in the way he'd engineered for decades. Not as a visionary. Not as a titan. As a cautionary tale. Maya stood by her apartment window, phone in hand, watching the headlines scroll. Corvin Global Board places Hale on indefinite leave. Internal audits reveal years of suppressed reporting. Former consultants come forward. She hadn't expected that part. The others. Women. Outsiders. Quiet professionals who had once walked out of glass buildings carrying boxes and self-doubt. Now they were speaking. And they weren't alone anymore. The call she didn't expect. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Alcott, a calm voice said. This is the Ethics Oversight Council. Maya listened in silence. When the call ended, she sat down slowly. They wanted her to lead a task force. Independent. Protected. Real authority. Not a title designed to control her. But a role built to amplify her. The man who lost everything. Across the city, Dominic Hale sat alone in a penthouse that no longer felt like a throne. The silence there wasn't peaceful. It was accusatory. Every reflection reminded him of the one thing he'd never measured. Consequences. He replayed the moment, her calm voice, the way she didn't gloat. The way she didn't need to. Power, he realized too late, was never about control. It was about responsibility. And he had failed at the only part that mattered. The final choice. Maya stood before a small audience weeks later. Not investors. Not executives. Students. Young professionals. People who hadn't learned yet how often the world tried to shrink them. She didn't tell her story as a triumph. She told it as a warning. They didn't underestimate me because I lacked skill, she said. They underestimated me because it made them comfortable. The room was quiet. But you don't owe anyone comfort at the cost of your integrity. Applause followed. Not loud. True. The last image. Months later, Maya walked past the Corvin Global building. The logo was still there. The glass still gleamed. But the power inside had changed. She didn't look back. Because real justice doesn't demand witnesses. It leaves space for the next person to walk in. Underrated. Unimpressed. Unstoppable. Final message to the audience. Some people lose power loudly. Others lose it quietly. But the most dangerous mistake is believing you can take from others without eventually paying the cost. Because the world has a way of balancing itself. And karma doesn't rush. It waits.